जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुनतीरवनचारि यमुनतीरवनचारि जय राधमाधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधमाधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुनतीरवनचारि जय राधमाधव कुंज बिहारी जय Reading from chapter Canto 1, chapter 9, text number 21. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 21. Sarvatmana samadrisho hi advai yas ahan krite tatkritam mati vaishyamyam nirvadyasya na kvachit sarvatmana samadrisho hi advayasya han krite tatkritam mati vaishyamyam nirvadyasyam na kvachite sarvatmana samadrisho hi advayasya ahan krite tatkritam mati vaishyamyam nirvadyasya na kvachit sarva hi advasya yahan krite tatkritam mati vaishyamyam निर्वध्यस्य न क्वचित् सर्वात्मानस्मदृशो हि अद्वैषा अहङ्कृते तत्कृतं मतिवैषम्यं निरवध्यस्य न क्वचित् सर्वात्मना समदृशो हि अद्वैस्य अहङ्कृते वैषम्यं निर्वध्यस्य न क्वचित् सर्वात्माना समदृशो हि अद्वस्यान् अहङ्कृते तत्कृतं मति वैषम्यं निर्द्वस्य न क्वचित् सर्वात्माना समदृशो हि अद्वस्या अहङ्कृते तत्कृतं मति वैषम्यं निरवध्यस न क्वचित् सर्व आत्मना of one who is present in everyone's heart, samadrisha of one who is equally kind to one and all. He, certainly, advaisya of the absolute, ahankrite, anahankrite, free from all material identity of false ego. Tat kritam, everything done by him. Mati, consciousness. Vaishyamyam, differentiation. Nirvadyasya, freed from all attachment. Na, never. Kvachit, at any stage. Translation and purport by A.C. Divine Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, He is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone and He is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever He does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Purport. Because He is absolute, there is nothing different from Him. He is Kaivalya. There is nothing except Himself. Everything and everyone is the manifestation of His energy. And thus He is present everywhere by His energy, being non-different from it. The sun is identified with every inch of the sun rays and every molecular particle of the rays. Similarly, the Lord is distributed by His different energies. He is Paramatma or the Supersoul, present in everyone as the supreme guidance, and therefore He is already the chariot driver and counsel of all living beings. When He therefore exhibits Himself as chariot driver of Arjuna, there is no change in His exalted position. It is the power of devotional service only that demonstrates Him as the chariot driver or the messenger. Since He has nothing to do with the material conception of life because He is absolute spiritual identity, there is for Him no superior or inferior action. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, He has no false ego, and so He does not identify Himself with anything different from Him. The material conception of ego is equibalanced in Him. He does not feel, therefore, inferior by becoming the chariot driver of His pure devotee. It is the glory of the pure devotee that only he can bring about service from the affectionate Lord. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाया कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतुसे नमः हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, especially Kanai Thakur Prabhu and all the senior Vaishnavas, Jivdeva Prabhu. Not qualified to sit over here and give a class, but as a service and for my purification, I'm attempting to give this class. Please bless me that I speak in parampara and something that is pleasing to all the devotees and our acharya. And if I speak anything beyond my realization, please forgive me. So we will try to cover two topics today. First is the importance of prayers, because very beautiful prayers that come in this chapter, Bhishma prayers. And second is teachings of Bhishma Dev. Many devotees have taken elaborate classes on teachings. So we will just add few points on the teachings of Bhishma Dev and discuss the shloka as per the teachings of Bhishma Dev. So as we discuss in this chapter, which is entitled Passing Away of Bhishma Dev in Presence of Krishna, there are beautiful prayers that come, which are called Bhishma Dev prayers. And earlier section also, we were discussing about Kunti Maharani prayers. So these prayers are throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. And in fact, I calculated, I just summed it up, at least 115 prayers are there in entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And each canto of Srimad Bhagavatam have, prayers. And these prayers are actually the crux of Srimad Bhagavatam. There is philosophy, there are stories, and there are prayers. And these prayers are actually exchange of devotees with the Lord. Prior to coming to Krishna consciousness, I thought prayers are only, Jai Jagdish Hare, Bhakt ke sankat dur kare. I thought prayers are only in the form of distress or in an aspiration for joy. Like, I want something or I want this. So we used to pray like that. But after coming to Krishna consciousness and after reading Srimad Bhagavatam and Brahma Samhita, we come to know that prayers are at a different level by devotees. They are glorification of the Lord and not just asking for material things from the Lord. But Krishna is very kind. Even if our prayers are in terms of material aspirations or, coming out of distress, like we pray for devotees, if they are suffering from any disease, we pray for their quick recovery. So Krishna accepts these prayers also. Like we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dhruv Maharaj, he prayed that he wanted a kingdom even bigger than Lord Brahma. So he prayed and he performed severe austerities for that. And Lord Vishnu, when he gave his darshan, then he said, I don't want anything. Lord Vishnu asked him, what do you want? He said, I don't want anything. So the conclusion of our prayer should be this, that we don't want anything. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim. That should be the conclusion of our prayers. We may ask for material things, but at the end we should be in a position that we can say that I don't want anything. So these prayers, Srila Prabhupada explains that these prayers are very, very important for each of us. In fact, Yamuna Devi Dasi mentions that Srila Prabhupada used to teach them, one prayer, Hari Hari Bifale. So when Srila Prabhupada was teaching them in one occasion, Srila Prabhupada, while reciting these prayers, he went into deep ecstasy and trance. And then when Yamuna Devi Dasi was looking at Prabhupada, his bodily composure changed completely. His skin became slack, and his color of the skin also changed, and he had all the symptoms of ecstasy. So that is the emotion that goes in the prayers. And when we recite these prayers, we get an opportunity to get into those emotions which are experienced by great devotees, exalted devotees. So it is very important for us in our sampradaya that we should try to recite these prayers. And these prayers are not prayers by like you, I, like me, myself, or Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? These prayers are by exalted devotees. These are prayers by Vyasdev, prayers by Brahmaji, Lord Shiva. So these prayers are by exalted devotees. That's why Shrimad Bhagavatam is also said Uttama Shloke. It is topmost shloka. In fact, one of the names of Krishna is also Uttama Shloka. That's why we say Bhagavati Uttama Shloke, right? So Lord Shiva himself in Shrimad Bhagavatam says that devotional service is little difficult to perform. But if devotees recite the prayers given by me, the stotram given by me, they can achieve the mercy of Supreme Personality of Godhead very quickly. So these are the powers of prayers that you can achieve the greatest what other devotees are experiencing if we get into that mood of prayers. So over here also in this chapter, Bhishma Dev, actually it starts from little bit from this where Bhishma Dev is revealing the the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, in these few shlokas, and then later on Bhishma Dev starts his prayers. So this is kind of a prelude to these. Bhishma Dev is talking about Lord Krishna or glorifying Lord Krishna. So Bhishma Dev is a very interesting character in Mahabharata. Though he is in the side of Kauravas, his heart, his soul is with Krishna. Though he is a devotee, his acts or actions seemingly seem anti-devotee. He was on the sides of Kaurava. Immediate quality that come up in our mind, at least to my mind, is epitome of sacrifice and selflessness, right? Itna sacrifice kiya, itna selflessness is the epitome of it. So that is the vision we get of Bhishma Dev when we look at him. And second thing that we feel about Bhishma Dev is that he had complete dedication for his dynasty. Like he sacrificed everything, all the happiness or all the material enjoyments for his dynasty. But in this chapter, we also learn about Bhishma Dev's complete dedication to Lord Krishna. So this Bhishmadev character is very interesting to study. How we can perform our devotional service. He was disciple of Parshuram Muni. I think he was the only Kshatriya disciple of Parshuram Muni, and he was one of the 8 Vasus who was cursed to take birth in the material planet, earthly planet, because he was the one who stole um the Kamdhanu cow from Vashishta Muni. So he was cursed to become take birth in the material planet. So, uh, uh, going back to love for Krishna, Bhishmadev exhibited love for Krishna in a very hidden way. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, definition of love is given. It says that love means somebody who can perform devotional service selflessly without any consideration. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport saying that when a person is in relation with another person, there are four things that can take place. And the first thing is, scarcity. There could be a scarcity in relationship, like another person may not be able to provide whatever that person is asking. So there could be a scarcity in the relationship. Second is, there could be some impediments in the relation that can come in the relationship. Third is, there is some discomfort can come in a relationship. And fourth is unhappiness. So these are the four things that can occur in a relationship. And one who typically any of these things happen in our life, we want to go away with the relationship. And we see that most of the divorces are because of these four things that happen in one's life. Either there is impediment or discomfort or unhappiness in a relationship, and we want to go away from that relationship. But Srila Prabhupada mentions that one, if he continues to be in that relationship in spite of these four things, then that is the symptom of love. So therefore, Bhishma Dev actually exhibited all these four things in his life. In spite of these four things that have happened in his life, he continued his devotional service to Lord Krishna, in spite of all the impediments that were there. He was not, he was willing to uh, let go free flowingly into the will of the Lord. He did not have any inhibitions to perform the duties that Krishna has asked him to do. So if you picturize Bhishma Dev in this particular section, he's sleeping on the bed of arrows. So this whole picture is very painful. Physically, it is very painful. But more than that physical pain is a subtle pain. The subtle pain of being misunderstood. And within that misunderstanding also, there are two levels of pain. One is being misunderstood for the actions, and the second is being misunderstood for the intentions. So it is said that one who is misunderstood for intentions, that pain is even more greater. So over here we see that Bhishma Dev was painful not just because of his physical condition, but he was undergoing pain even because he was misunderstood. Very few devotees, and that too following in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, could actually realize that Bhishma Dev is performing devotional service, even in the garb of being, his actions were not indicating, but his intent was always performing devotional service, right? So it is very difficult to be in that situation. People are going to judge you for your actions and not for your intent, right? So we see that uh, in Arjuna's case, the intent and the actions were very straightforward. The intent was to please Krishna, and the actions were also to please Krishna. But here, Bhishma Dev, his actions was something which is not going to please Krishna, but his intent was to please Krishna. He is performing these actions just to please Krishna. So very, very difficult to understand this character and to understand. And most of the times, he gets judged because of his actions. So, so in our lives also, if we take Bhishma Dev's example, we feel discouraged, and when circumstances are not favoring us, we feel discouraged, we feel disappointed, and we feel that ye nahi karna hai bhakti, because I was doing it nicely. Why did Krishna give me such calamities that I had to leave my bhakti? But Bhishma Dev teaches us that in spite of this spectrum of favorable and unfavorable conditions, you need to continue to perform devotional service. It's a whole spectrum. It's not like always good, always bad, or always. It is a mix of good, bad, everything. There's a whole spectrum of circumstances that can come in our life. I've personally seen so many devotees when difficult circumstances come in their life, they either give up chanting, even initiated devotees, right? So it is very difficult to be in that situation what Bhishma Dev is, and Bhishma Dev teaches us through his behavior, that is why he's called Mahajan, saying that in spite of unfavorable circumstances, he is performing his devotional service unflinchingly. Sometimes in a negative character, like in our dramas also, sometimes we have negative characters. And Jai Prabhu, who's a devotee, we always end up giving him negative characters. And he performs that negative character with the same enthusiasm as what a hero would perform, a devotee performing a hero activity. The idea is that sometimes the negative character overshadows the heroic characters. That's what Jai Prabhu always does. His negative character overshadows the positive character. But that does not stop him from being a devotee. He is performing what the director is asking to do. Similarly, Bhishma Dev is performing what the director Krishna has scripted. And we see that this kind of relationship we see in many scriptures, that where devotees are performing negative character, or they are in a circumstance which is full of negative characters. So if we go back to Ramayana, we can think about two characters who were not having such favorable conditions, and they were being judged for their intent and actions. Right? One of the character is Bharat Maharaj. Like Bharat Maharaj had no intentions to become the king, but because he was associated with Kaikai, everybody thought that he is part of the conspiracy. In fact, when he came back from his uncle's place, everybody, all the great sages actually blasphemed him. Bharadwaj Muni, Vashishta Muni, all the great leaders in the dynasty, they all started blaspheming him. And he was being judged for his intent, which he never had. So it's a very difficult situation to perform devotional service when people are judging you. But he did not blame anybody. In fact, what he said was, neither Mantra, neither Kaikai, nor my father is responsible for this particular action or this particular situation that I am into. It is only because of my previous karma that I am going through this situation. It was the people actually in that time were judging Bharat Maharaj so badly that whenever Bharat Maharaj used to go for his daily bath, he used to go at 1 o'clock in the night. Why? Because at 3 o'clock, the villagers will come for bath. And if they would see Bharat Maharaj, they would throw stones at him. So he was judged for his, so-called intent, just because his association with Kaikai. So, but still he performed his devotional service unflinchingly, in spite of having, all the difficult circumstances. The same case is with Vibhishan also. Vibhishan was surrounded by demons, demoniac people. Ravana was his brother, right? So when Hanumanji went to Lanka and he saw Vibhishan performing devotional service in such a hostile environment, where everybody is kind of meat eaters and not, the circumstances not favorable to do devotional service, Hanumanji was amazed and he asked Vibhishan, saying that, how can you perform your devotional service in such a situation? And Vibhishan gave a very beautiful answer. He said, my situation is like the tongue, who's surrounded by teeth. And those teeth are like demons who are always biting. And by mistake, if the tongue comes in between the teeth, there is so much of pain. So his situation is like that. But he still continued to perform his devotional service. And there is a lot of time devotees give analogies between Bhishma Dev and Vibhishan, because they were in similar condition. The only change that was there is Bhishma Dev continued to be there, a part of the Kaurava family, but Vibhishan chose to come back to Ram, Lord Ramchandra. And when he came back when he chose to come back to Lord Ramchandra, again he was judged by his intent. Whether ये spy के रूप में तो नहीं आ रहा है, and he will destroy our army. But Lord Ramchandra gave him shelter, and Lord Ramchandra did not judge him. Lord Ramchandra, in fact, said that anyone, even if Ravan comes and says that I am yours, that I will allow him to become my devotee. The only thing that a person needs to tell is, I am yours. So this is kind of impartial, mercy of the Lord, that Lord does not see our previous background. He gives His mercy without seeing our previous background. Whatever conditions we come from, Lord gives His mercy to anybody. So over here, we see that these great Mahajans perform devotional service in very difficult situations. And over here, Bhishma Dev also is performing his devotional service in a very difficult situation, where his entire body is with arrows. In some lectures, I was hearing that there was not even a space for a hair to pass. That much arrows were there in his body. And when we see this picture, he's in deep pain, right? And he cannot move any of his body parts. But when he sees the Pandavas coming and all the great sages coming and Lord Krishna is coming, he actually, whenever a devotee comes, you have to show hospitality. And he's not able to show his hospitality, and it is against the code of Kshatriya. It's a great deviation if they don't show hospitality. So in spite of his body, and none of the parts of his body were able to move, but only one part of the body was able to move, and that was his tongue. And he showed his hospitality by using his tongue in Krishna's service, in the devotee service. So in this chapter, shloka, we see that before this shloka, Bhishma Dev is glorifying Lord Krishna, and in fact, he's revealing the supremacy of Lord Krishna. He is telling Pandavas that, Lord Krishna, you may have considered him as, your friend, your benefactor, or your guide, your cousin, but he is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And he says that though he may have favored you, it may appear that he came into, he performed different acts or different relationship with you. And it may seem that he favored you, but he is not partial to anyone. So this is the shloka that we come into, where he's saying that Bhishma Dev is saying he's not partial. Actually, it's very difficult to say this. He's not partial. I mean, if I was just trying to imagine myself in his position, I would have straight away said, Krishna, it was so easy for Arjuna. His actions, his intent, everything was in line with you, and he was glorified for his action. Every devotee, everyone in the world glorifies Arjuna. But my actions were seemingly opposite, but my intent was very pure. And still he says that he's impartial. I could have said that he's partial, Krishna is partial, but over here, Bhishma Dev says that he's impartial. And we hear in Srimad Bhagavad Gita also, where Krishna himself says in the 9th chapter, Samoham sarva bhuteshu, name dveshosti na priya, name dvesho. I am not envious, nor I am dear to anybody. I am not, nor anyone is dear to me. I am equal to everybody. Samoh sarva bhuteshu. But then the next lines he says, Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya, maite teshu chapiham. So, anyone who performs devotional service, he is in me and I am in him. So these two statements actually appear contradictory. On one side, Krishna is saying that Samoham sarva bhuteshu, I am actually equal to everybody. But the next line says, but I favor the devotees. So how do we understand this? So to understand this, it is like this. He is impartially partial to everyone. You're getting my one? He's impartially partial to everyone. What it means that this partiality is open for everybody. He's impartial in giving that partiality to everybody, right? So he is equal to every. If I see, look at some devotees and see that, that devotee is able to chant so nicely, he has taste for chanting, taste for reading Srimad Bhagavatam. That taste has been given by Krishna, and that mercy can be given to me also if I endeavor. So he is impartial in giving that mercy. But if you are performing some activities, devotional service, so he'll give that. If you show that endeavor, he will give that mercy to you. So he is impartially partial. So that is the way we need to understand how Krishna is impartially partial to devotees. Then second word over here is ahan krite, free from material identity of false ego. So all of us are having false ego. We tell in our device class also that, we were all spirit souls in the spiritual world, and because we wanted to enjoy the material, enjoy separately from Krishna, Krishna created this material world. But what happened was, we are spirit souls and we can't interact with the material body, material things. So we needed a kind of a covering for us, for us to able to enjoy the material things. And we give an example of, virtual reality game. To experience or to enjoy that game or to play that game, a person is given a headgear, he's given a joystick, and he's given all the facilities to get into that game, so that he can experience and enjoy or suffer in that game. Similarly, because we are pure souls, we are not able to interact with the material world. Krishna has given us this material body so that we can interact with the material world. And while we are doing so, we start identifying ourselves with that material body. Like in the virtual reality game also, we start identifying with the character in the game. If he wins or if he kills somebody, we are ecstatic. And if he kind of gets hurt or gets killed, we are sorrow. We are not this body, we are not that character, but we start identifying with that character. And our happiness and distress is dependent on the character's happiness and distress. Similarly, because we got this material body, the enjoyment and the distress that the material body feels, our soul also starts feeling that enjoyment and distress. But Krishna does not have a material body. And in fact, we are so much identifying with our body that sometimes we think that we are a husband, we are a wife, we are a son, we are a CEO, we are a manager. And we start misidentifying ourselves with various relationships we have with this body. A very nice example story comes, and I googled it, and it seems it is true. Once Jawaharlal Nehru went to the mental hospital, and the doctors were showing him all the rooms in the mental hospital, and he was very happy looking at the way the facilities are provided. And one room was written as restricted entry, and Jawaharlal Nehru wanted to enter into that room. And the doctor said, "No, no, you can't go into that room." He said, "No, no, I want to go. I've seen the entire hospital. I want to go into this room." He said, "No, no, we keep people who are very violent, and that's why entry is restricted." He said, "No, no, I want to enter and want to meet those people." So the doctors because they were forced, they took them inside. And this was a big room, and there was nobody inside. And in the corner of the room, there was one person sitting very silently. And Jawaharlal Nehru was amazed to see him, and he went. And it seems he was very nicely dressed, and he was in a meditative mood, looking outside the window. And Jawaharlal Nehru went over there, and he said, "Good morning." And that person also greeted him, "Good morning." And then Jawaharlal Nehru asked him that, "Who are you?" No, Jawaharlal Nehru asked him, "How are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing fine. How are you doing?" Then that person replied, "I'm doing fine." And that person asked him, "Who are you?" And Jawaharlal Nehru said, "I'm the Prime Minister of India." And immediately that person came very close to Jawaharlal Nehru. He said, "Don't say it aloud. I also said the same thing, and I'm inside the room." So what the story tells us is that we are identifying ourselves with so many relationship and so many positions, and we are in this asylum of material world. Because we are identifying ourselves with this material body, we are in this asylum of material world, and we are in this material world till we keep identifying ourselves with the body. So we need to come back to our true nature, to our true ego, as servant of Lord Krishna, as the part and parcels of Lord Krishna, and go back to Godhead. So over here, Ahankrite, because Lord Krishna does not have a material body, the dualities of material world also don't apply to him. Pain, happiness, distress, glory, unglory, those things don't apply to him. He is ready to do even a menial service as a chariot driver, or as a person who looks after the chapel stand. Actually, in the Rajsuya Yagya, he was given the responsibility of taking care of the footwear. So he is ready to do even that kind of menial service, and he is ready to do even the glorious acts, right? It does not affect him, but for us it affects, because we identify ourselves with the material world. Because Krishna does not identify with the material world, and in the purport Srila Prabhupada says, he does not feel unglorious. No act is unglorious for him, or no act is glorious for him. He is equipoised, right? And uh, so this is called Ahankrite. Krishna does not get dishonored, and he does not feel inferior by any service that he does. So we see like great devotees like Bhishma Dev and all the Mahajans, in spite of all the four impediments in their life, they continue to perform their devotional service. They continue to chant the glories of the name. So it is a great learning for us to continue our devotional service and our chanting. We should keep chanting in spite of any impediments that we face, in spite of any unfavorable circumstances that we have. So this is one of the great learnings from Bhishma Dev's stories. And I would like to conclude over here that the chanting of the holy name may not change the weather. The heat and the cold will keep coming. But at least chanting of the holy name will assure us that we would have an umbrella or a raincoat to protect us from those heat and cold weathers. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.